Okay, ready to go. What's your topic again?
I am going to be talking about the tipping function that's been added to Twitter.
Yes, that was a good one, wasn't it?
Well, we'll see.
We'll just record the outro now. 3, 2, 1. So, started a podcast. We have a bunch of fans, massive following now, huge.
2 hands worth.
Went into stardom, yeah. Got our first comment this week. Received our first piece of hate online, which was just as cool as receiving a comment, I think.
Yeah, it was from Adolf himself. You know?
Yeah.
We couldn't ask for higher praise.
Yeah, I did expect someone from the alt-right to comment on the alt-right video, shouting us out, but I didn't expect Adolf Hitler himself.
The king of the alt-right.
We made the big time there, but we'll talk about that later anyway. So if you didn't know, this is Guide to the 21st Century. It's a topical podcast between two friends, Lewis and I, where we talk about topical issues and try and navigate the minefield that is life in the 21st century.
Each week thus far, Scott and I have went away during the week and we've thought about a topic that's been playing in our mind, and we've brought that to the podcast and discussed it in this format, and we've tried to reach a couple of new conclusions and hopefully kind of enlighten ourselves during this process.
Yep, so you first this week, Lewis. What's the topic you bring to the table?
So I am bringing a topic which I thought... Yeah, it was one of the ones I thought was pretty interesting as soon as I read the title, and that is, I want to discuss with you some of the implications about the recent feature that Twitter have added. So what they've done, they've added what they're basically calling a tipping feature to Twitter. So before I even go any deeper into this, do you know what I'm talking about? Did you get a notification about this, or do you know what I'm saying here?
I think I received maybe an email, or maybe it was a notification on Twitter itself that was saying that, I think it was people that had accounts that were going to add like a tipping feature to their account. I don't know if it was content creators or what account, maybe it was verified accounts, I'm not sure, but there was going to be some sort of donation feature added.
Yeah, okay, so that is exactly what we're hearing here. Up here on my screen I have the blog post by Twitter which actually introduced this, which is basically all the public information we've had, and like you said, they're adding the option to add a link to the top of your profile page. There'll be like a little wallet symbol next to your name, and that'll bring you to a link to either like your PayPal or like a Moneybox account, or there's a Vimeo, I think was another one. So it's like 5 different cash apps, and effectively it's a one-click capability in order for you to pay someone. And so here we have sharing your PayPal link after your tweet goes viral, adding your cash tag to your profile so people can support your work, dropping your Vimeo handle to your birthday or just so you can get some extra help. You draw a conversation on Twitter, and we want to make it easier for you to support each other beyond follows, retweets, likes. And today we're introducing Tip Jar, the new way for people to send and receive tips. So I'll show this little animation, let it run on the screen for a wee second here, because it basically just shows you what the layout is going to look like. There's literally this little icon next to your name, and once you click onto that, you'll get brought directly to a separate app, whether that's Bandcamp or PayPal or what have you, and you can just pay this person their money. So the actual article itself doesn't give you much information. I did a little bit more digging on my own to see why this is being introduced, and there's been some speculation. Basically, over lockdown, over COVID, over the last year, of the social media sites, apparently Twitter has actually made the least growth, which is kind of surprising, but one of them has to be in bottom place, I suppose. They made like 0.9% growth, which of course is only tens and tens of millions of pounds, but it's still not enough for what they want to see. So they've tried to introduce a couple of new radical features, and this is one of the first ones they've introduced. Down the line, they actually want to introduce a subscription service, but there'll not be many hints at that yet. But basically, they want to move they claim they want to move some of the reliance away from advertisement, because that's where most of the ads come from right now. So they've added this ability to tip, and they claim that the reason they've added this feature is because so often when like someone's tweet goes viral, you'll see, like it'll go viral, and then they'll retweet themselves, or they'll be like,
I'm sick of that, and there's like a tweet below it immediately, and it's like, donate to my PayPal, and it's fucking hell, man.
Well,
it's so pathetic.
The donos are bad, the donations are really bad, but oftentimes it's like, check out my Etsy store, check out my YouTube, check out this, and basically it's almost become like a joke in itself that after a tweet goes viral, underneath it you'll see the please support me type of thing. So they've basically introduced this feature to try and I guess, facilitate that process. So, see, when I read about this, there was like a couple thoughts that immediately came in my head, but I want to know what you think about this. Just hearing, just on the very surface of it, the idea of like the ability to pay someone or tip them, because this is exactly what it says. A tip, there's no limit to the amount you can give someone.
No.
Does that seem negative or positive to you? Does that make a damn difference? Like,
my immediate knee-jerk reaction, first of all, was how fucking good do someone's tweets have to be for you to want to give them money? Like,
sure.
Twitter's such a small, like, you get such a small window for content. How fucking good can your tweets be that someone's going to pay you money? That's my first reaction.
Mm-hmm.
As you were talking there, I kind of came to like a secondary conclusion, though, that this is not for any other reason other than Twitter is dying, right? Like, this, you're talking about like growth, like not having enough growth. And I realised that the reason they're doing this is because they need to be generating money, and Twitter's, you know, it was notorious because it never had ads for a long time. You know, that was
Right.
that was the thing about Twitter for ages. It made no money, but it had so much potential to make money. So they're trying not to do that, but they're now getting to a stage where they're no longer growing, so they have to try to make money. And my thought about that immediately was, because they're going to start doing shit like this that nobody is going to do and nobody wants or asked for, people are just going to, there's going to be a new website that pops up. You know, there's going to be, people are going to leave Twitter soon. You know, obviously people aren't coming to Twitter anymore.
Sure.
Shortly they're going to start doing shit like this, and people are going to start leaving, you know, because it is getting bad, I think.
Yeah, you're right there. That's an interesting observation. I hadn't thought about that actually when because I mean, obviously this does suggest that they need to make radical changes. They're talking about fucking subscription services, so they're obviously like worried about their place in the future, and they're thinking that their model's becoming outdated. When I read about this, I was like, I agree with you. I was like, who the fuck is going to tip someone for a tweet? How's it going to be so enlightening? How's this person needs to be like Gandhi or something before you're going to fucking tweet them? But anyway, I'm after that immediate thought. I was like, I thought to myself, how much worse is this going to make interactions on Twitter, right? Like, I kind of thought this, I swear to you, the first thing that I thought to myself was that, like, how bad is Twitter's interactions already? Like, how toxic and how echo chambery and one-sided is that whole scape. I thought to myself, imagine throwing financial incentive into that boiling pot, right? Is that do you think I might be overblowing that? Or,
well, when you're saying, first of all, I think there are definitely people that are going to do this, because, you know, you see it on these apps like Twitch and YouTube, where there are people who are getting these services now. Twitch is a gaming streaming website where people go on, they stream their games, and once you get big enough, you can partner with Twitch and you can pay a subscription to get no ads on their channel, to get like subscriber only mode, to get the emotes and stuff like that. People also choose to submit donations to these channels, and donations are like no benefit to you. They're just you pledging money to the content creator because you use their content. Now,
yes,
there's no reason to do that. None whatsoever.
no, there's no incentive.
Other than maybe seeing your name on the screen for 20 seconds,
Right.
you know, reading the message out. But so people do this, and I think they will do it on like Twitter as well. I never thought about the fact that people are going to be incentivized to say certain things on Twitter which will get them donations. I never even thought about that.
That was what I was immediately worried about. Is because it's bad enough when you start thinking about content creators. Because it's like, imagine you're just like some fucking idiot who like does like a vlog channel on YouTube, and it's like a bunch of reaction videos and fucking boxes in the dark web. You know, just a typical YouTube channel. And you put out a tweet one day, and you're like, I don't know, let's say you're slagging a local mayor or something like that. I don't fucking know. And all of a sudden, you get tipped in total $500. You know, this tweet just goes viral. You know, viral for you. It blows up within your bubble, and all of a sudden, everything in that bubble is like you're getting like all the support, and like there's a couple of fucking idiots out there that's tipping you $100 because she's like, I like that opinion. All of a sudden, in the future, it's like, well, I was gonna maybe tweet this more partisan thought, but last time I was given $500 for using this particular opinion. It's like, how much of a bias is that going to put on interactions for these people that have a voice. Like, will that not? I don't know if I'm being paranoid.
Bad. This all seems bad. I don't understand why you think this would be a good idea. It almost like reminds me of when you hear about people, your parents and their parents who say things like Sky came around, like subscription based television, and the whole thing was there was no adverts, and then somewhere down the line they stopped growing, so they put in adverts, and they keep doing new things to like just try and squeeze the money out of it. And now you see that medium kind of dying now. You see TV is on the decline, and it seems like the same thing is just happening with Twitter to me, where they have been about something at first, they started making money, then they stopped growing, and now they're like, well, we don't have the growth that we want to see, so we need to squeeze more money out of the audience that we do have to keep ourselves looking like we're going in the right direction.
I certainly fucking hope that they stop growing, honestly. It's because, see, the more I thought about it, the more I thought of how, like, fundamental what they were doing was in terms of possible damage that they could have been inflicted. And this might be where my brain starts going a bit, maybe start worrying about it a little too much, Because I thought to myself, like, we live in like a climate where for many people across the world, most of their interactions are actually occurring online. Like we now live in a space where so much of what makes us social beings is now communicated purely on social medias. And social medias, that they are, it's in the name, they are a social network. It's a collection of people with a hierarchy involved in that, and they all communicate in their specific ways. And now Twitter just went up and taken a fundamental facet of how we communicate with each other and slapped a fucking price tag on it. They've literally involved money with the most basic human activity, which is communicating with each other. And I was saying to myself, like, this is why is this not being, why is there no attention being paid to that? Like, see the actual article itself, the BBC article that I read. It was called "You Can Now Tip the Tweets You Love." I mean, it was fucking really happy, nice little channel, and it basically gave you a brief descriptor which just rehashed the blog post. And it did bring one thing to your attention. It said, recently a user has spotted that when you do try to pay someone else's PayPal, it will show you the person's that will be receiving the money. It will show you their email. So it's like, so there's a possible breach of privacy here. So they're really going to get on that, but nothing else. Nothing else in terms of how you're fucking up the whole dynamic here, about how just potentially dangerous. So I think we can agree there's reason to be at least concerned and have questions about the implementation of this in terms of how normal people communicate.
I think you have gone a little bit conspiracy theory on that one.
Always.
You always do that. That's true. If my first reaction was that it will be negative, now that we spoke about it a little bit more, I agree that it's going to be negative. But at the same time, I'm kind of the opinion, when I see people donating to these streamers on Twitch, I think it seems pretty stupid. But it's like their money. So I'm also kind of like back and forth on it. I'm not really sure if there should be a wall on that or not. And it's the same thing with Twitter, where people are now going to be able to do that, and I'm sort of on the fence as well, where I'm like, it's your money, but at the same time I think you're really stupid, but I can't really get in the way of you doing that.
Sure.
I think that the reasonable person is just going to like stop using it. I don't think that the average person will use the function, so I don't think there'll be too much to worry about. But I don't know.
Yeah, I hope you're right in terms an idea of the fact that the average person will stop using it. I kind of have a feeling though that, like, see this came out and it's kind of branded as, like, you can, if you see a tweet that you just happen to see along the day that you like you can just go ahead and give that a wee bit of love, share the love, But I was thinking to myself, like, this feature is not for average people. This is not, most people after this feature comes out, they will use Twitter the exact same way. This is purely for personalities and content creators, right? This is for people that have large followings already, that already receive stupid, useless donations from Twitch. And this is what I was asking myself, like, why would Twitter want to do this? Like, how are they going to make money out of it?
It seems like this is a ploy to get the big content creators and the big personalities back to Twitter. If they weren't, they probably were on Twitter a while ago, but they're probably moving on to things like Instagram now. I've seen a lot of stuff about Instagram. You know, you hear people like Kim Kardashian, how she gets paid it literally insane, like 6 figures for an Instagram post and things like that. It's probably a ploy to get these people back to Twitter, to try and get these content creators here to be, you know, there's money here for you to make if you want to post content on this website, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that was the realization. Well, actually, the first thought I had was to myself, which I think is totally wrong. I was like, right, okay, so once people have like tipped their first patron, you know, once they've tipped the first person to like the tweet, that's them. They're kind of like, they're more in the ecosystem and they'll be less likely to leave Twitter. And I was like, I realized that that's totally and utterly wrong. I think what this is literally a ploy to get creators to join the platform and to bring their fans with them. It's because Twitter do not take any cut in this whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't make any money. This is purely to do with getting extra people on the platform. And I can imagine it's because one of the examples I heard was, see right now, OnlyFans, which for people that are watching this that aren't aware of what it is, I think it's effectively an application when you can follow your favourite stars and they will give you content, usually explicit content.
It's porn.
Is it? It might. Okay, sure. I imagine it must range from the.
OnlyFans
really?
Is basically just porn. Yeah, I think. It's
yeah, but it's like free. It's like, you know, homemade porn though. You know, it's like, I think anyone can set it up and do it. You know,
it's a subscription service to someone's nudes. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's spot on. Well, right now, OnlyFans takes a 20% cut in all donations that you're given, or all tips. But Twitter is the only platform which allows full not safe for work nudity, and now they're going to be taking 0% of your profits. So
wait,
it's like,
Twitter allow nudity?
Yeah.
In every way?
Yeah, look, there'll be like I think there's like a little thing which will say, this post contains explicit information, click here if you're 18, or something like that. But like, there's no block, and there's no rules for them to get rid of adult content on their website.
What about explicit, like, what about hardcore porn? Is that allowed on Twitter?
I think so. I mean, the one thing that I read said that they allowed not safe for work content. So like, basically there was this commenter, I think, that I read about was basically implying that, and there is a certain number of people that have noticed this already, that it's like, these OnlyFans content creators would effectively just move their content over to Twitter, you know, and the fan base that they already have following them with OnlyFans over to Twitter. And then they'd be making, like, so it's kind of a win-win for Twitter and the user, for Twitter themselves, the company, and the person that's moving business, because they're going to be making, like, more than the 80% they were making before. They're going to make 100% of all profits, and Twitter is potentially going to be earning, like, hundreds of thousands of users that will be using the app more regularly in order to pay attention to this content. So it's like, in a way, it's kind of brilliant, actually, the fact that they've just went, fuck it, we're not making any money out of this. They're playing the long game here, you know.
Although you have to remember though that eventually, when a subscription model does come around, that will be the case. But right now, it's only a tip function. So OnlyFans content creators won't be wanting to come over to Twitter just now, because the content will be free.
Yeah, there's nothing to actually gate the content. You're right, but it's like,
but they're going that way.
It was like a thought experiment someone did, effectively, which is like, why, like, this is Twitter saying to the world, like, you can use us and to make money. You know, like, if you are already have a following, if you are a personality, you can come to Twitter and make more money than you're making on your platform, because we're going to take nothing. You know, and that's exactly who this is for. This is for these massive people, like the YouTubers, the Twitch people, you know, like that are just going to come over and start tweeting again all of a sudden. And I think it's, quite brilliant. But at the same time, like, it's just no thought at all has been put into this. So like, I like the idea of like 0% tip, but see, to go back to like some of the problems I was having about, you know, this there being an involvement in bias. Twitter have in absolutely no way regulated this function, right? So they've made it available to, currently it's in a post beta but not widespread stage. So they've made it available to journalists, public speakers, content creators, and some other group. I can't remember who exactly it is. But the idea is that these people can get paid, and that's fine. But there's no limit to who can get paid, and there's also nothing stopping people choosing to sign up to the service to get paid. So currently you're having journalists that are being tipped unknown amount of money, you know, and like that's like a huge ethical thing. Like there's a tradition that people do not tip journalism, because if there is, then you are paying off the press, you know, and you should be in jail for that type of thing. You know, but Twitter, they've not even thought about that. They've just unleashed this concept to the world, and they've went, fuck it, let's see how this goes. You know, it's like I feel that this is kind of an example of what we talked about previously, where it's once again an example of a tech company just being so massive and so willing to make money and boost profits without any consultation for the wider world. They've just like thrown this rule out there, you know. Does this not feel to you like one of those things where it's like either this will have to get changed in a couple months down the line, or it'll get scrapped? It's because there's just so little. Like, you and I are just two normal people, and we're talking about it a little bit right now, and it seems very flawed, you know.
I see what you're saying about how it's effectively, you could see it as paying off the press. But I think back to, remember last week when I told you about the guy from Kinda Funny who'd went off and started his own thing based on the backlash he receives from the sexist tweet.
Sure.
And how he now had the biggest gaming Patreon in the world. It's now the biggest gaming Patreon on the website. I have a sneaky suspicion that what you'll actually see might be the journalists that don't have any bias might receive the most tips. So I would say in today's market, the journalists that I see, especially on Twitter, always seem to have a bias. There's never, or there's hardly ever, any impartial news reporting or anything like that. The quote-unquote journalists that you see on Twitter always seem to have an agenda. They always seem to be telling you something or telling you how to think about something.
Right.
And they seem to have their own sort of cliquey audience that agrees with them, you know.
Right.
And
yeah, their own. Yeah, the group that the
their echo chamber, their
Sure.
little echo chamber, and undoubtedly they will tip them. But I think what we might see is the journalists that are actually unbiased might be able to go to Twitter and platform themselves as like an impartial source, and they might see some growth as well, you know, because like I say, that guy's Patreon, he's not exactly the quote unquote gaming norm. He doesn't adhere to the kind of unwritten rules of that society. They kind of like ostracized him, but then he ended up making more money than even the company that he left, you know. People actually left the company and came with him because of that. So I would be interested to see if you would see a rise in these journalists who don't have a bias because people appreciated their content more. You know, that would be an interesting thing to see.
That would be really interesting to see. You're right. And that's something I suppose hadn't occurred to me, was that you might find that giving the people this option almost leads to itself, it fixes itself, you know, like by giving the people the power to support what they want to support, you might find that the cream rises to the top because these are people that are able to gain a platform. But I think that almost goes against what we've talked about in previous episodes, where we do talk about the fact that there are echo chambers here, and we have acknowledged the fact that, for instance, like fake news, it just gets more stronger opinions out of people. It gets more, and it gets propagated faster throughout the internet. I'm kind of inclined to think right now that the type of information that would get favoured in that environment in terms of tipping would be the same as the information that's favoured right now in terms of just retweets, you know?
Maybe. I think about, when you've said that though, I think about the content creators that I watch on Twitch. You know, when you see these content creators, some of them can have, you know, when I spoke about offline TV last week, you know, take one of the biggest streamer on Twitch is probably Pokimane. Right. And I think you know, she has like tens of thousands of subscribers. I think she has over 10,000 subs. Now, she obviously has a very dedicated fan base that probably reply to all of her tweets and probably interact in her chat. But there's not 10,000 of them. You know, that our chat doesn't have 10,000, you know, distinct people
there's
talking.
Lots of people that lurk, isn't there?
Exactly. And there's probably a lot of those lurkers that actually are subscribers. Of the subscribers that she has, maybe there's only 1,000 of them in chat regularly, and maybe it's only 100 of them that are always in the chat, sort of thing.
Definitely, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
So she probably has this massive support from a large section of her audience that literally just lurks and enjoys the content.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the stuff that you're seeing that's being circulated on Twitter right now is the stuff that gets all the responses. It's the stuff that generates all the arguments, and these things get all the traction. But your average Joe isn't necessarily interacting with those things, if you know what I mean. They're not particularly interested in them. I think the tip function might actually give people a clear way of just voting with your wallet of what you want to see, sort of thing.
Put your money where your mouth is, yeah.
So I think you might actually get a lot of your average Joes who follow these people on Twitter but don't necessarily interact with the things that are actually circulating because they just don't care. You might actually see them rise up in a way that is a paywall. So you'll see the number of donations that they received, and it'll be higher than the interactions they've had because average people will donate as well. So it might sort itself out,
See, when I thought about it for a little bit, I kind of doubted that most people would act that way. I didn't really imagine that someone will see a tweet that they think very strongly about and will actually pay or tip that person to try and to help them out. I kind of imagined it would be what we've mentioned when we're talking about these parasocial relationships, like fans that are obsessed with a creator, and they're gonna give them money no matter what platform they're on, and now Twitter's just another option for it. And so that's why I worry that this system won't be effectual, is because most people that are kind of reasonable would not tip someone for a tweet. It's because it's fucking ridiculous when you think about it. Why would you give someone is that person's opinion so amazing you want to give them money? It's like, no. The only way you do that is if you had this fake emotional connection to the person in the first place, right? That in my mind, that would be the only thing that would need you to tip you over the edge to actually part with your money to encourage a certain point of view.
That's certainly one way of it'll be one of the factors or one of the types of people that will tip. I think you're right, and I think these content creators probably rely on those whales, those people that will give them money no matter what and subscribe every month. That's probably a massive part of their income. The thing that interests me about it is I agree that the average person probably isn't going to tip someone for a tweet for their opinion on something. Maybe if their opinion is specifically strong in one direction
or thought out or something,
you might be inclined to do so. I would think that the things that will be tipped will be specifically things that take you to other websites. So there will be a journalist will post a link of an article that they've written, and that people will go to that website, they'll read the article, and they'll go back to Twitter to then tip that person. I can't see people tipping the everyday tweets that people put out, exactly. But
okay.
Maybe the YouTube video that you're now advertising, people will come back and they'll tip to that, or maybe the article that you've written, people will come back and tip to that. These sorts of things. I think that's what it's for. But
that makes sense. I can imagine it. The scenario in which I imagine it being used a lot is how you see it all the time. It's the feel sorry for me tweets. It's you saw a lot of it during lockdown. It's I'm a full-time nurse and I left the house this morning and I dropped 4 coffees in the ground. What am I going to do? And then, you see, you tweet the next day and they'll show you a picture of their apartment and it's been completely redone. They've got a new car and it's thanks for the donations, guys, really helped me out. I think there's going to be lots of that, because people get a good kick out of feel they've helped someone. So see if they see someone that's feeling a negative tweet. I think there's going to be a lot of small support for that. It's going to be nothing to do with the thought of the content itself. It's going to be that person needs a bit of a hand, so let's fucking give them a wee $5 or something like that. And that's, I agree with you what you said previously. It's see, in that situation, it's if you have the money and you're inclined to give it to that person, I can't stop you. It's that's just that's purely a personal opinion thing. So I don't think that would be too bad if I actually got it. If it actually ended up being used that way for most people. But it's an interesting one. I'm not too sure. I'm kind of more negative towards it right now. It kind of leads me on to the question, which is what how do you feel about just donations in general? You know, like how that whole concept, because like right now there are quite a lot of ways for content creators or personalities to make money, and like things like Patreon or just you know PayPal subscriptions are, it's becoming a really prevalent thing now, it feels like to me, just to ask for money.
Yeah, it's a very direct way of being able to pay for content that you like, I guess, and also not having a contract and just being able to withdraw your support like whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I quite enjoy it, the subscription model like that, especially, I think a lot of people spend a lot of time on like Twitch and YouTube.
Oh yeah, suddenly think about the amount of hours.
And the $5 a month that they put up to view that content seems like a fairly good deal. The strange thing about it to me is, I guess in a way I understand tipping because, like, for example, I used to work as a Chinese delivery driver when I was in just at the end of high school towards the beginning of uni.
Yeah.
And it's a service that I was providing that people tipped me for, and I was very happy to receive the tips.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that. These streamers are providing a service, and if you want to tip them, you can do so. It seems a little bit strange to me to go like way over the top and start donating like £100 and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I guess at the end of the day, it's about how much do you value this content, and if you have the money to spend, then that's kind of what the content is worth to you. And when it comes to Twitch and when it comes to YouTube, these subscription models, to me, it's almost like Twitch is telling you the market value of this content.
Right.
And
it
you're
feels undersold as well.
You're deciding to go above and beyond the market value, which is strange to me, especially when it comes to these massive streamers, because I think they have a lot more money than people think they do.
Right. That's I suppose I really strongly agree with the way you phrased that there, because like, see, on in theory it makes perfect sense to me, because like, it's like you said, it's like you tip the person that's been delivering you your food, because like it's just a little bit of extra, like they're it's not like they're a millionaire because they're delivering your Chinese at the end of the day, so it's like it's just something nice. It's like keep the 20 type of thing. I totally understand that, and there's content creators that I have followed on YouTube or Twitch or something like that I've thought to myself, like I would think I would not mind signing up to their Patreon, or like something like that. And whether that's for various reasons, maybe like they're not a YouTuber full time and they're like working a full time job, or maybe like some of the creators, like they're always demonetized by YouTube, so they don't actually make much money from the hobby. So I'm like, there are certain scenarios in which I really like the idea of subsidizing and helping a little bit just with the donation, because it's exactly like you said, like YouTube, as much as you pay with like ads, by watching ads, you don't pay money itself. And Twitch, you pay like $5 a month for potentially hundreds of hours of view time. It's like an incredible deal, and I think in a way you are getting much better value than you really think about when you compare how much it costs for fucking Sky for the year. You're getting a good deal, so it makes sense to like just like prop them up a little bit. But it's when the channels are like Pokey or Disguised Toast, like we talked about last week, who has thousands of subs and they're like got millions in the bank, and then they still have like a donation link. It's like, that's fucking greed right there. There's no reason for that. That's where I kind of object.
So just a specific example, I think Pokimane has actually limited donations to $5 now. Like you can't donate any more than that.
Okay,
and I think as far as I'm aware, I think Disguised Toast like quite often just takes donations off his channel because he's like, guys, I'm fucking rich. Like, stop
you have no idea. Yeah.
When I brought up the example of like the service industry there, I think it's probably widely accepted that they get tips because they're on such small wages though. When I worked at the Chinese, I wasn't making thousands of pounds or anything like that.
Exactly.
It was maybe £1,000 a year or something along those lines. So the tips kind of make up the money that you're making. For these massive streamers, they are not short on cash.
No,
they have so many subscribers that it gets to the point where this is a very lucrative career for them, and people are like still donating. That's what confuses me about that, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was meaning. Like, see if I can tell that a creator's like really small, or they're like don't have many subs, or they're just struggling in one way or another, or something like that. Then it's like totally and utterly reasonable to help out. But yeah, it's like people that donate to Kim Kardashian, stuff like that. It's just like, you are so dense that that you're the type of person that I think is going to fuck up this tip system and ruin it. You know, because like if people were reasonable and used tipping and this whole concept of donations, it's like it's a fine system. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that when people start throwing around hundreds of dollars, and that can be for various reasons, like, you know, for instance, like a parasocial relationship, or they just like strongly believe with like a political view. These things just start to break down, I feel, and like I just don't trust people. It's because, you know, you and I both use Twitch, and tons of people use Twitch. See these big streamers, the amount, like, if they don't limit the donations that they can take in, it's just hideous, the amount of people the amount of money people are willing to throw at them. And that's my evidence, that's basically the evidence, I think, when I feel that this tipping on Twitter will just get totally abused by people that are just trying to, you know, worship this particular person, you know.
It's going to be strange to see how it evolves, because like on Twitch, I wasn't around for the early days, but you can see how it would have evolved, where people were getting donations, and then maybe some streamer implemented, you know, your donation will be read out on stream.
Yeah, right.
And then that happened, but then it got to the point where too many were getting read out, and it was like minimum of $5 to get it read out on stream. And these things start like evolving. It's going to be interesting to see how Twitter evolves in terms of its donation space and its tip space, you know.
Yeah.
Are you going to have like a link to your biggest tippers of the month and stuff like that? Before you know it, you're starting to get rewards, quote unquote rewards, for doing these things. Because you see Twitch streamers all the time have like top donators of the month.
Oh yeah.
Things like that on their sort of stream overlay.
Top donators of all time, those are the worst ones. It's like 25
like
grand.
25 grand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that is one good thing about how Twitter's implemented this, though, because like it's not like Twitch. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's not like Twitch right now, where it's hidden. You know, like there's no obvious awareness, but people are intelligent enough to find out a way to monetize this and ride it for a revenue stream. See something like a new website which offers donations. People will very shortly from now be coming up with incredibly complex methods in order to maximize the amount of donations they have from this new revenue. And it kind of makes me think that when it comes to like donations right now, I kind of feel that there's like, maybe I'm just being an idiot here, and I think like the biggest personalities are too big, but like it seems that, see, once you get to a certain stage, like there's nothing stopping you from making money. You know, there are so many options, whether it's just like the advertisement of the actual site you're using, or like private ads for companies that approach you, or like Patreons or donations. Now you've got this thing on Twitter, it's like merchandise. There are so many options for people that have a certain critical mass of following to all of a sudden make bank, you know. And this is just one of those features that's purely for them. It's to make the richer become richer in a desperate ploy for Twitter to try and grab back some growth.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way, because your average person isn't going to see any functionality out of this, right, unless you have a tweet that goes insanely viral, and for whatever reason people feel the need to donate to your one funny joke. But yeah, it is going to be the content creators, it's going to be the celebrities. Now that we've discussed it, I think this is a ploy to get those people back to the website. And it kind of makes me think that Twitter is just going to become an ad in itself,
right,
where you're getting tipped for tweets, because I think it's going to be tweets that take you to other places. So Twitter they're trying to make Twitter like a hub for these other websites. You know, it's going to be a link to YouTube, it's going to be a link to your news website.
They're going to try and bring it back to a news source. You know, they're going to be like, this is going to be an information hub again, and they're going to be trying to put their finger in all these various revenue streams that are outside of Twitter to try and cement themselves. But I think this is like, this is the type of thing that I think it might be enough to actually save Twitter. You know, like,
really,
I don't know, like, you do have to wonder. You do have to wonder. It's because, like, as I said, there's been plans. Like, there's been lots of speculation on this new subscription service they're going to introduce. People are talking about like the ability to unsend messages, you know, stuff like that, and like super follow people and all that usual shit of the day. You know, I think it's lots of ploys, effectively. But I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see where it goes from here. And this is clearly like the first step and quite a big overhaul. And I'll be relying on you to tell me, because as I said, like as much as I find this is fascinating, I just don't use the damn website because I just don't find. Yeah, I don't know. Never got into it, but
it makes me wonder if, these content creators and streamers, they must have like contracts on the websites they're on. Is that going to stop them from getting these tips on Twitter? Because I can't imagine these streamers are allowed to stream on Twitch and then go over to YouTube and do the same thing. They have like exclusivity contracts. So
yeah, that's
are they
right.
going to be excluded from doing this on Twitter because websites like Twitch won't want them to be going through someone else? They want you to be able to get all the stuff on Twitch. They want you to keep
they want
you there.
exclusivity, don't they? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
yeah, that's good. But
it'll
that's
probably be an
thing
update
that,
of the contracts, I think.
Yeah. That's the type of thing that I don't reckon Twitch will take too much to deal with. That'll just be like, because you can opt in and out of this. You can make your payment information not available. So if you have like an exclusive website, exclusive contract with say Twitch, then you would just opt out of there, and it wouldn't become available for you. But it's another example of this such a complicated environment that these people function within, and there's so much complexity that for me it feels like there's just so many routes to make money out of it effectively, like it's just,
it seems like Twitch is no longer keeping up with inflation. If you say it's only gone up 0.9% in the last year, that seems like that's not enough to like sustain.
not for a tech company.
Yeah,
right.
it's not enough to like sustain growth. So they've had like a board meeting and they've put out a list of changes, and it seems like a last throw of the dice to me. This is like our last resort. We need to start donations, we need to start subscription models, we need to start monetizing, to maybe try and get investors back in, or to try and get these personalities back in, to try and get something going, to generate something. Yeah, exactly, because if it is dying, which it seems like it is from that statement earlier, then that seems like what they're doing. It's a last throw of the dice to get things going again.
I'm curious, this may be a little bit tangential to what we're actually talking about here, but can you... Do you think that Twitter's dying? Like, apart from like what I've told you there, do you notice like any degrade in the content, or like maybe becoming stale, the format in itself? Is like Twitter just it's one of the old school social medias? Is it just falling behind maybe?
So Twitter kind of became massive when we were in high school, I think. I think maybe when we were about 15. So I want to say maybe just over a decade ago, Twitter started to become cool. And when I got Twitter back then, all my friends were using it,
right.
And they were all kind of tweeting all the time. And as the years have gone on, as we've got older, people have stopped tweeting. People are on social media less when they get to like our age, like 25, 26.
Yeah.
But I don't see the younger generation taking Twitter up. So
right.
I've been recently tutoring my little cousin for her Nat 5 maths exam. And when I'm with her, she takes a break from questions. She's on Snapchat. She's on Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
Twitter's
TikTok.
Not one of the websites that she's on.
Yeah.
So yes, it seems like it's dying. And specifically for me, on my use of Twitter, over the last year or so, I've stopped following accounts that don't tweet. And I only really follow the big content creators that I use, and the hockey scores, and football scores. Twitter's still a bit of a news hub for me in terms of like hockey, but I'm getting pretty close to deleting Twitter. I deleted Facebook, I think maybe last month or the month before, and I'm getting pretty close to deleting Twitter as well.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there with this idea of like it being a generational social media. It's like it was one of the ones. It was hot at the time, and it's done really well over the last decade. Like it was really, really hot at the time, and it's still huge. It's got, as much as we're talking about small growth, we're talking about a massive user base. What I would expect is the next decade for it to get smaller and smaller and die out like its previous iterations, like Bebo. It's kind of going through a much bigger but not dissimilar process where you had the users, and then those users kind of outgrew it, and the new people that came along, there was other options available. So why and other options that are just fresher, so it makes sense to me. But
yeah, they've got a problem where the younger generation won't take it up for whatever reason, and they've also got a problem where the generation that do use it are starting to leave because it's not what they want anymore, or it's not good enough for the things that they need. It's short form, you can't get points across, there's no conversations to be had on it. people just don't have fucking interesting things to say. You know that.
And people are starting to realise.
See, when I look back, I remember realising this maybe towards the end of high school, but like not doing anything about it. If you look at anyone's Twitter profile, they just tweet shit.
Yes.
It's honestly garbage. It's uninteresting nonsense, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone. If you look back at my tweets for God knows how long, it's bullshit. It's all
why
total
do I think
rubbish.
people would care? Yeah.
Every so often I'd tweet something about the hockey, and I'm the only person I know that watches hockey. It's like, why the fuck did I do that? It's just utter garbage from everyone.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I did use it for a couple of years, but I mostly used it for fucking traffic updates, And like, I on my first couple cars, I posted that up in there because I was like, fucking check this car out, guys. I had like, I had like 4 people that followed me or something like that, and like 3 of them went to cars, So yeah, it's not really one for me, but it's very interesting, and I think this is like. You're right. The first thing you said, and it didn't even occur to me, but like this does seem like a bit of a ploy, is because like it's such a kind of a strong move in offering this tip service and no thinking about it. Just fucking introducing this away blog post, man. Like that's all they did. They just fucking shat this out there and like, I'll see what happens, So
yeah, it's like they just googled it. They've gone over and gone, what do websites do to make money? And donations. You put it out, send it.
Yeah, it's like I've seen people making jokes about the fact that people constantly are like putting their Patreon handles after a viral tweet. Is that something can we work with that? Like, fuck it, yeah, just do that for them, I guess.
What cut should we take? Nothing.
Why would we take anything? So why not making money, Twitter?
Yeah. It seems like a last ditch effort to save what seems to be a dying website, I think.
Yeah. So as I said, I really wanted to talk to you about that, and I was kind of like struggled to think about how we were going to approach it, because I swear to you, man, I swear there is no discussion about this online. Nowhere did I see people actually talking about the implication of this. It was just like copy and pasting the blog post from Twitter itself, and that was pretty much it. So I think some people did mention the idea about worrying about journalism and stuff like that, but mental. And it's
maybe it's because Twitter is declining in popularity. Just no one gives a shit about it anymore.
Folks just roll their eyes. Maybe. Yeah.
Donations don't use website anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That could be it.